Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar La Mesa Redonda, The Round Table, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas, locales, regionales y mundiales, por USA la Radio. Señores oyentes de USA la Media, estamos aquí de nuevo con su programa La Mesa Redonda, The Round Table, desde el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Christian Lacey controlando el tablero. Y aquí estamos apenas unas horas, 48 horas después del voto para la presidencia. Y todavía no hay una respuesta definitiva, aunque por el camino se vislumbra la respuesta. Y aunque no lo puedan creer, es el vicepresidente Joe Biden, el ganador. Y es duro para Donald Trump aceptar la derrota, como él ha anunciado varias veces. Los perdedores no les gusta. Al señor Trump no quiere ver perdedores. Él insultó a un gran soldado, un héroe americano, militar, John McCain, diciendo que no era un héroe porque había sido capturado. Ese es el concepto que él tiene de heroísmo en este sentido. Pero entre tanto hubo un segmento con una narrativa breve de los acontecimientos más grandes en la vida de Joe Biden. Desde el comienzo de su vida, cuando muy joven todavía, habiendo empezado a servir en el Senado, perdió la vida su esposa en un accidente. Y luego el modo como él se dedicó a educar a sus hijos, más tragedias le esperaban, un hijo enfermo, él mismo contrajo cáncer cerebral y todas esas tragedias que acompañan la vida de mucha gente y a través de las cuales pues él se levantó a luchar otra vez, a seguir por el camino, lo que él cree que era su destino, y luego su hijo lo impulsó a continuar. Le dio el ánimo para que continuara en la lucha política. Así que esto es un hombre que que ha lidiado con problemas, con tragedias toda su vida, y aquí estaba en este último esfuerzo por llegar a la presidencia. Si hubiera fallado, tal vez hasta ahí hubiera llegado su esfuerzo, pero aquí está. Más largo de lo que se esperaba. Nadie esperaba este proceso tan largo, tan complejo, para obtener el número de votos, pero aquí estamos. No estoy seguro si alguien se ha unido. Anyone has joined me at this point?
Fernando, buenos días, buenos días, buenos días.
María. La concejal María Quiñones.
Ilustre. ¿Cómo están?
Es un honor.
Gracias, el honor es mío. Gracias por siempre crear un foro donde las noticias son verificadas, ¿verdad?
Exacto. Sí, estaba precisamente buscando un artículo pequeño en el que detalla hasta el último momento que el presidente trató de decir más mentiras todavía.
Yeah, y de verdad hay que darle crédito a todas esas emisoras que todavía creen en la integridad de ser un noticiero, que, they took them off the air, hasta Facebook y algunos de los social media le bajaron algunos de los comentarios. Tan peligroso y me preocupa muchísimo que vamos a ganar hoy y que en los próximos 60 días, que todavía es el proceso de transición, lo que puede ocurrir con ese tono que está saliendo de la Casa Blanca.
Sí, parece increíble. No sé cómo el conteo ya va a favor de Biden aquí en Pensilvania, ese era el conteo clave para ganar la presidencia. Y pues Trump salió a las 2:15 a hacer un último discurso. Dicen que trataron, no sé si es verdad, que sus ayudantes trataron de pararlo, de decirle que no saliera. Tenían temor de lo que iba a decir.
No, yo me imagino que en adición a los steroids que todavía le están dando las hormonas después del COVID, van a tener que darle calmantes.
Sí. Pero sí fue muy preocupante. No sé cómo viste tú la noche misma del martes. ¿Cómo viste
Bueno,
tú el asunto?
el día muy lindo, gracias a Dios, hubo un día muy lindo, vi la gente muy animada. Y aunque ninguno de estos procesos es perfecto bajo una pandemia, porque hay que recordarle a la gente que los números en estas últimas semanas están, la alta tasa de COVID están como en los primeros días del peak, so hay que preocuparnos, pero todavía la gente animada, los voluntarios animados, y pues asegurando, por hecho yo tuve que hacer varias entrevistas para noticieros de a través del mundo que vinieron buscando the fraud, ¿verdad? De Turkey, de Portugal. Y la primera pregunta o la segunda es, ¿y el fraude que va a haber en Filadelfia? El presidente dijo del fraude y yo le dije, bueno, nosotros tenemos un presidente que de todo el mundo ya conoce que es un embustero, he's a liar, y que nosotros hemos perdido ese respeto mundial y lo vamos a recapturar después de la elección. Pero de verdad había un sentimiento de estos noticieros que había unas cosas ridículas que iban a pasar y no ocurrió, ¿verdad? Y a muchos de esos noticieros los envié para el Convention Center. Yo les dije, vayan al Convention Center, entren a los colegios y vean la democracia, porque los principios de los Estados Unidos, la democracia, people's right to vote, es uno de los core values que tenemos y nadie va a violar eso, ¿verdad? Por eso es que estamos aquí creyendo en estos valores. Pero me sorprendió en la manera que el rhetoric del presidente y que estos noticieros vinieron esperando. Yo no sé qué esperaban, because,
Pero yo creo que ellos ya debían saber que lo que él iba a decir era inflamatorio, era para ofender, para insultar, para regañar a todo el mundo, porque la culpa de su pérdida, de su derrota, no es él. Por supuesto que no va a admitir nunca que él es culpable de haber perdido esto.
Y es interesante, la data más importante en de ver que it is about him, es que muchos republicanos en el Senado ganaron, ¿verdad? Que eso quiere decir que la gente split their vote, votaron por Trump, pero todavía dieron su voto republicano hacia sus candidatos de su partido local, ¿verdad? So, el rechazo fue de Trump, ¿verdad? Los republicanos leales a su partido en muchos de los estados todavía lo vemos con la contienda en el Senado, que por hecho el runoff en Georgia, go Stacey Abrams, revenge can sometimes be sweet, que se fajó en Georgia, pero el hecho que esos votos, cuando él vaya a ir a la corte para demostrar fraude, he's going to be invalidating los votos de esos republicanos locales.
Yes, but the problem, the dilemma he and his people have about taking anything to the court is that they are promoting that the counting continues in Arizona and Nevada, in places where Trump by counting more votes, he seems to be catching up. But they want to stop the counting in Pennsylvania because it's the opposite. The more votes are counted, the more the bigger the defeat for Trump. So
There's never been consistency in their approach, ¿verdad? That's why yo lo dije del miércoles. Yo le dije, well, let's stop counting, right? Because we were ahead. So it's like,
right,
let's stop counting at that point. But, um, again, estamos peleando y hemos luchado y toda la gente, los voluntarios, todo el mundo, to save our republic, you know. Desafortunadamente, lo que vamos a ver en las próximas semanas va a ser a rambling and a dismantling of a very dangerous coalition of people, el presidente and his enablers, ¿verdad? Porque ya hemos llegado a un extremo. Tú mencionas el hecho de his handlers didn't want him to go make a presentation. They're enablers, y ellos son más peligrosos because they know better, than him. He is caught up in his cocoon, pero they know better. Y estos son gente, supuestamente los republicanos are better patriots than us, right? And I imagine that for them, this is very hard to watch and personally live.
I got an article from BBC News, U.S. election 2020, Donald Trump's speech fact checked. President Trump spoke early on Friday about the US election count, making a number of accusations of fraud for which he did not provide evidence. We've fact checked some of his claims. He says, I've been talking about mail in voting for a long time. It's really destroyed our system. It's a corrupt system and it makes people corrupt. That's his first claim.
It's his swamp, ¿verdad? He was supposed to go up there and clear the swamp.
but but many states use that system forever. They have been using
it. He used it. He did early voting. What is he talking about? In Florida, it's okay, right? In Florida, without those mail-in votes, early votes in Florida, he loses.
Okay, Maria, let's see if we can, you and I can put together this strategy, because what it was, first of all, discredit the mail-in vote, because that's probably, they knew it was going to go against the Republicans.
But he used it. He uses that argument. He used it.
But they knew in this case that vote, they didn't want to be counted ahead of time for a good reason, right?
Yep. They didn't want their folks to be discouraged.
Right.
And the whole strategy, and again, I will always give credit. Le voy a dar crédito a los republicanos because they follow the script. The Democrats, we're so open, we don't follow the script, right? They follow the script. They misled the pollsters like they did in 2016, and they went in and voted at his direction on the machine. And so he knew that he was going to win the machine vote because that's what they told their people to do, and their people listened. And that's why, so that he can begin this argument about stop the counting.
Mm-hmm. But Oregon and Utah, for instance, they have used mail-in successfully in previous elections. There was no problem there.
In New Jersey, they automatically send you your ballot.
Right.
I mean, like, come on. They send you your ballot. You don't even have to request it.
Right. But now, more specifically about Pennsylvania, why did we have so many mail-in votes at the end that we're still counting?
Because the state legislature would not amend the law to allow early counting. And they insisted that all the counties could not begin their count until the day of election. They would not amend the law that allows all the other states, Florida included, to begin counting their mail-in votes. And that's why we have a delay. We also, here in Pennsylvania, the one piece that we won at the state Supreme Court that the Trump people went to the courts on was the ability to still count anything postmarked by 5 o'clock on Tuesday. And we have, by law, to 5 o'clock today to receive those ballots that were legally cast and count them.
Huh.
So there's more to come. More to come.
Yeah. So we have, well, at this point, with the Pennsylvania vote, it looks like Biden's ahead, but by a few thousand, but that is supposed to grow during the day.
So what is poetic justice, in addition to General Stacey Adams, we're going to call her General Stacey Adams in Georgia. In Pennsylvania, Hillary Clinton in 2016 lost by 44,000 votes. Most of the pollsters, which we can't believe anymore, are saying that Biden will win by 100,000 votes. I'm okay with beating him by the same amount of votes that he beat us in 2016. So I think it'll be closer to 50,000 when all is said and done, and I'm okay with that number.
Yeah, at this point, as I said about soccer games, winning is winning. So winning ugly, I don't care.
+1 is all it takes. If it's all +1, +1. Um, one of the things, again, credit and shout out to all of the Philadelphians that were and Pennsylvanians and all the people who came to support yesterday and insist that every vote count. They turned it into a party, and the Trumpsters, who were there. It is sad to watch. And one of the things that, if we're really going to heal as a nation after this, is that we cannot villainize folks that we disagree with, right? There are some really tough conversations that we need to have, but we have to heal all this hatred, because if we act like Trump acts, then we're not going to be any better than him. And we've had too much of that. I've had friends call and say, Maria, when do we start lock him up chant, right? Because I think Trump said he was moving, right? If he loses, he's leaving the country. We got to take his passport because we got to lock him up.
The Southern District of New York is very interested in his whereabouts.
The very capable attorney general in New York, African American woman who has some really good cases to be tried around the Trump family. She will be, after General Stacey Adams, she will be someone else that the world will know who she is, because we believe that those cases are going to lead to some serious issues for the Trump family.
Now, what do you make of Eric Trump and
Junior's running already? I mean, I think in one of his tweets, it was sort of like, if my dad loses, I'm coming. And it's sort of like, whoa.
Oh, wow. And Giuliani and all these people going around telling more lies, saying that this was crooked.
I just saw the Borat movie with the Giuliani scene. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't seen it, no.
It is a must watch. And, there's a little bit of, setting him up, but it just speaks to, they use the term for women and I hate it when they use it for women, but they clearly are nasty. That scene is nasty. Giuliani's doing what he's supposed to do. Again, he's one of the more dangerous enablers. I think somebody posted on social media, Bush had Jim Baker, and you see the statesman, and Trump has Giuliani, right? And they put a Giuliani Jim Baker photo together, and it's sort of like, yeah, who's legitimately going to try a case in the Supreme Court? It's sad. It's sad to watch. This is, it is sad to watch this.
Okay. What happened? What happened with Congress? Instead of gaining more seats, we lost 5.
Well, here's what I would say to you, and this is one of the realities, Fernando, that I had to learn as a district council person, and as has been said, all politics is local. I think, and again, I appreciate Bernie Sanders. I love Elizabeth Warren. But when we go to both extremes and we shot at each other and we're not listening, this is what happens, right? This is what happens. And in local elections, again, you're going to see in some of these districts the splitting of the vote, because people are concerned. I have that in my very own district, Fernando. When people say defund the police, when I go into the neighborhoods, people be like, Maria, don't be getting all wrapped up in that, right? And again, as someone who served on the police oversight board, I said, no, we got to reform the police. But I think when we start talking at extremes, and look, I'm to the left, to the left, to the left of issues, right? Personally.
You
But
are?
I represent, I am. I don't want you to call me a socialist like you do, Pedro, because it has a negative connotation when you say it, uh, because that's what you mean. But there's a level of pragmatism that when you enter these legislative bodies, that you have to represent your district, and you have to respect the people who disagree with you, right? But you got to listen to them. And I think what you're seeing in some of those congressional folks is those national commercials that came in impacted how people viewed that, right?
Right.
And that's why you saw a lot of the local elected officials in Congress and Senate trying to separate themselves a little from some of that rhetoric. And I think that's the message that I read in there. The message that I read in the Republican Senate seats that were won, the message that I read in the close congressional races is we got to stop talking at the extremes and we have to start listening to each other.
Señores oyentes de Usa Media, si ustedes acaban de sintonizar nuestra emisora, estamos en una conversación con la concejal María Quiñones de Filadelfia y hablando sobre los resultados de la elección y el conteo y cómo vamos y a quién está diciendo mentiras por todas partes.
Fernando, gracias. Yo quiero enfatizar that we had a record turnout. Latinos turned out en el estado de Pensilvania en números no sorprendentes, because we know we're a sleepy giant. 290,000 latinos en el estado ejercieron su derecho al voto, que es un net gain del 2016 de 116,000 personas. So no quiero que nadie le quite esa meta, algo that we should all be grateful. So le quiero dar las gracias. Yo entiendo que después de la comunidad afroamericana, en particular las mujeres afroamericanas, este número de votantes latinos son la clave a la victoria de Biden en el estado de Pensilvania. So shout out to all of you and our allies, porque, we should all be proud.
Pero ¿de dónde salió tanto voto hispano por Trump?
Bueno, una de las cosas, y yo que he estado las últimas semanas en the Bilingual Voting Center en Lehigh, y ha tenido muchas discusiones, y yo creo que después del primer fin de semana debatiendo un poco, that's why estoy hablando un poquito de tenemos que dejar de hilar los extremos y escucharnos, ¿verdad? Escucharnos un poco. Hubo mucho voto evangélico pentecostal que estaba votando on LGBT and the abortion issue solamente, ¿verdad? Y cuando le explicaba y le trataba de explicar de los 500 niños en la jaula, de lo que ha pasado en Puerto Rico, tú sabes, esa postura, single vote, para ellos mismos se lo justificaron. Otro trend que vi, hombres latinos, un poco machistas, le gustan el estilo de Trump. Sí. ¿Verdad? Y lo otro que lo vimos y lo hemos vivido es un sentimiento que el Partido Demócrata no respeta el voto latino. So, diferentes personas tenían diferentes justificaciones por lo que estaban haciendo. So some of it was el partido de nosotros, don't embrace us. Algunos, lo de abortion, algunos lo de LGBTQ. En particular, cuando el Papa salió en las últimas semanas around civil unions, la comunidad evangélico y pentecostal, again, no todo el mundo, porque quiero también explicar que de las 50 divisiones mayormente latinas en la ciudad de Filadelfia, el turnout para Biden fue entre 75 y 82%, right? So they weren't significant, Pero yo te entiendo, en mi división en particular, ¿verdad? I think we voted close to 80%. Y yo todavía estoy pensando de mis vecinos, who is that 20%? I want to know in my own division, ¿quiénes son? Is it people that I talk to every day? Like, you know,
Yeah,
so just to
Maria,
clarify that.
you must find out, and then we'll paint an A letter on their doors or something.
Fernando, I had to remember that even when I win, there's 20% of people in my district that vote against me, and even in my own division. So I had to remind myself, me tuve que recordar que hay ciertas personas que son leales al partido y después, again, there's these other people that are single issue, pero la mayoría, la gran mayoría, 75 to 82% Biden vote en las 50 divisiones mayormente latinas. So, I'm going to take the victory. No puedo hacer a sore winner. I'm going to take that victory en ese número, pero voy a hacer un poquito de investigación esos 20%. Lo voy a encontrar.
But it's a little bit of a wake up call for the El Partido Demócrata, because so many Latinos going for Trump. They explained in different ways. There are different reasons, as you mentioned one about the vote, the evangelical vote, and others who were concerned about immigration. There are different groups had different concerns, which is why Latinos are not a monolith. We all have different things. But how do we explain so many Latinos, in spite of all the insults directed at Latinos by Trump,
But
as breathers?
vamos a ser bien claro. This is a Florida Miami-Dade situation, because the other thing, anoche participé en una conversación con Latinos for Biden Nacional, ¿verdad? Con muchos oficiales elector and others, Ken Salazar and others. Vamos a estar bien claro, because we really want to narrow it down to the uniqueness of the Cuban in Miami-Dade County. Nevada had 46,000 Latinos and overwhelmingly went for Biden. Arizona, 697,000. Wisconsin, 135,000. Michigan, 120,000. In Maricopa County in Arizona, the lead of the net gain of Latino votes was about 280,000. So let's narrow that conversation to the Cuban and that Venezuelan community down there that has an economic interest aligned with Trump and see the world according to Trump. So they're super anti-socialism, and then look at the economics of what Trump speaks to. They're the people who agree with everything is about the economy. So I don't want to quitarle la victoria a Wisconsin, a Michigan, donde Latinos made a huge difference, in Nevada and Arizona. So the narrative has to change. And those of us who know a little bit better, I know we've become political pundits in our own right. Latinos showed out and showed up for Biden. It is a very narrow window of Latinos that did not.
Yeah, that only makes sense. I still don't understand when I speak to any Latino and they say they're for Trump, and some of them say it's my pocketbook. And then I say, well, how about the children put in prisons at the border? How about the Mexicans insulted from day one? And they ignored all that. All that is set aside.
The 30,000 people still living with a tarp in Puerto Rico. I mean, it again, and this is why, Fernando, we have to take our victory, and we are disappointed in these people. But we have to your point, for the party, if the party is going to be the umbrella party, they have to better deal with the Latino community. We should not be outreach to, we should be engaged. And part of that engagement is having a conversation. And I think too many people in this election in particular, we were screaming at each other, not listening to each other. And again, as someone in a district where I have some folks who disagree with some of my progressive views, we got to do a little bit more listening. But we're a nation that needs to heal. And, we can have tenseful conversations over the next year or two, because we're going to be living through this COVID for another year. But we have to listen to each other. I don't want to demonize those folks. I'm disappointed, right? But we definitely understand that they exist. But when I find my 20% in my division and I do the conversations with them, if I learn anything different, I'll come back to you.
Well, Maria, I have a lot more questions to ask you in reference to what is going to happen and now. But I just want to identify the program right now, La Mesa Redonda from USA La Media. Les habla Fernando Mendez, en compañía de la concejal María Quiñones, Christian Lacey at the board. María, ahora estamos aquí que demos por sentado que ya ganó Biden, hay todavía que hacerlo oficial y todo esto. Pero ¿cómo ves tú la tarea del futuro para reconstruir este país? Porque él nos destruyó la fe en todas las instituciones, desde el FBI, Departamento de Justicia, well, name whatever. He
All of the
everything.
above, todas esas cosas, ¿verdad? La comunidad, our intelligence community, that he has so disrespected. There has to be some sort of focus in, right? Because eso es lo que nos va a dar the world standing that we had before. Nosotros tenemos que ganar, volver a reconstruir la confianza y el respeto del mundo, ¿verdad? So all of that has to be reinforced. Cómo nosotros trabajamos with el resto del mundo es sumamente importante, right? So el equipo de quién va a ser Secretary of State, si va a ser, whoever it's going to be, eso se tiene que hacer. Lo de la pandémica, sumamente importante. Esos recursos de establecer acceso al plan médico, el reinforcement of Obamacare con la nueva, todas las cosas que se tienen que añadir, clave. Y después el Heroes Act, tú sabes, nosotros, el gobierno federal tiene que proveer recursos a los gobiernos estatales y locales para asegurar que vamos a tener un smart recovery, un recovery más inclusivo de lo que hemos tenido anteriormente. Y yo creo que para mí eso sería la clave. World standing is hugely important porque no sabemos lo que este tipo ha hecho con Rusia y Corea y todas esas cosas, ¿verdad? So we need that to work. We need to get a handle on this COVID and have a real national plan, mandated federal plan on mascarilla, tú sabes, on masks, all the testing, all of the things that need to happen. And then how do we recover? How's the federal government support the very individualized recovery that's going to need to happen at the state and local level? Those to me are the three pillars that have to happen. And I put the world standing first because, again, it was really shocking to me how this international media came to Philadelphia, the birthplace of this country, and really thought we were crazy. I mean, it's just really scary to me what they think.
For good reason. I think all they had to do was look around and listen to Mr. Trump say anything. But okay, so we need to rebuild our friendship with Europe, with Germany and NATO and all that, because this guy was devastating for that. He only wanted to talk to Putin, to Kim
the bullies.
Jong-un.
Yeah, the bullies.
Yeah, absolutely. So did he do such damage to the powers of the presidency that people will be watching for Mr. Biden not to do anything?
That's why I say that, because I think that I want to make sure that our folks, when they see a very focused effort by the Biden team around some of the intelligence and the national security, that people don't say, wait, that's more of what the Republicans traditionally do. Our world standing is hugely important to our safety and to that constituency that has really been badly treated under Trump. And I think it's not an either or. Like I said, I think it's that intelligence, that world standing. I think it's COVID and the health related issues. And I think it's the rebuilding of a more equitable, build back better, I think was the slogan that Biden. And I think those three pillars are going to drive, and should drive definitely the first 100 days, and really drive the first budget discussions and investments that are necessary. But sometimes nosotros in this fight, we're like, well, why are we worried about that? I think we should be worried about our world standing. We don't know how much of our national intelligence has been compromised. We don't know what Giuliani is telling people, or Trump Jr. or Eric or anybody else, right? That people have said time and time again are being used by these Russian and Korean operatives. So I would feel much better, and I'm not usually a military intelligence person, but again, talking to this national press, it really took me back about what they came here expecting to see, and their perspective.
Yeah, the world has a different opinion of us at this moment, and that's what we need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Estamos hablando con la concejal María Quiñones aquí en USA la Media. Les habla Fernando Mendez. María, mira, the headlines from the Daily Mirror and other newspapers in Europe, The Economist and all of them, talking about a shootout in the White House. That's what they're describing it.
Oh my God.
And what they're saying is that that they're going to have to take the army to remove Mr. Trump from the White House.
Bill Maher has been saying that from day one. And I think since last year, he's been saying, what happens if he doesn't leave? And everybody keeps saying, no, there's always a smooth transition of power, da, 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 da. And, I think he has a point there to him. And that's why this whole issue around intelligence is important, because I ultimately think some level of military might is going to be needed. And those generals who are real patriots are going to be the ones to say, no, tú te tienes que ir, te va.
Uh-huh. Yeah. They're going to have to bring the generals that he fired, maybe all of them.
All of them back. I think, again, they have to heal within their own constituency, but in their own community. People who serve this country, being called, weak and suckers and, all of that stuff. I don't know a veteran that I don't, that I don't fully, that can accept that, right, and justify it. Even the ones, unfortunately, I have a couple of friends who are veterans and voted for Trump, but they didn't like what he said either. But in their minds, they justified it some way or the other. But that's why I think ultimately there will be some sort of difficult transition, and in that case, it is the military that has the authority to remove him, and they will, because they protect him, and then they have to say, okay, se te acabó, vete.
Grab him by the collar and take him down to the basement and say, you go on. Maria, we spoke about the healthcare and the COVID thing with one of the main things to attack immediately. But we know that that's not the only thing that we have to remedy immediately, because he had his hands into everything in this country. And one of them through Bill Barr, one of the most corrupt attorney generals ever. And so they created this lack of trust in our institutions of justice and the FBI and the police. What would be the first step? Naming a good attorney general, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The Secretary of State, National Advisor, Security Advisor. That's why I'm saying that we should not react if you see him making those appointments early on, because we need to do that.
Is there any danger that he would take illegal steps while he's a lame duck?
Oh my God, he can do so much damage. And that's why if Biden appoints people that are respected by the intelligence community and that whole security community, right? And then Trump tries to do crazy shit, people are not going to go down with him, right? And so that appointment um, those appointments are hugely important in getting the confidence of that community, right, on board. So that's why that needs to happen, because again, I think there's a lot of damage that he could do. We've watched Mitch McConnell with the appointment of Amy Barrett. They're capable. The Senate, and again, because there's these seats that are in play with runoffs, the Senate, along with the president, can still do some damage to us.
Yeah, what happens with those seats that are still in play?
They're going to be in play. I think there's a runoff. There's a timing around the runoff, but now you have Senate folks who will either play along or go down, on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some of these characters that I'll be happy never to see again. That Stephen Miller, who was guilty of the policy towards the children at the border. He's one of them.
Yep.
How about Rosenstein? Like, for a while, he looked like he was a sound individual, and then we find out he was heavily involved.
¿Cuál es ese Rosenstein?
Rosenstein, he was an assistant attorney general. He worked alongside Bill Barr, and
okay.
He has something to do with that letter that he gave the FBI guy to read. And he was behind the scenes. Apparently, he was one of those dark figures, like Steve Miller, that created really criminal policies towards children. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I just, again, I don't understand how people could be so evil. So yeah, no, I'm very, very concerned. Mitch McConnell has demonstrated to us that he is willing to burn the republic in this process, right? And I don't know how emboldened he's going to get, because he had such a tough race and he was so targeted, right? Some people have very thin skin around this stuff. And I don't know what that election will do to him, right? In terms of him willing to play along with Trump and really push the envelope even more. I mean, what he did with Amy Barrett, just, to me, he's lost all credibility around his ability. Just, when you look at all of the stuff on record about them, that, with the Garland case, and then what they did with, save the video. You can play this back if I ever do that. And then we played the video for them 10 times. And it was, I didn't mean it. I just, it's hard to justify.
It's incredible.
Yep. Well, Fernando, I'm going to have to go because I have a call to make before my next 11 o'clock. I want to thank you so very much for your forum and for you keeping people informed and
Maria,
and the work. No, I really, really, really appreciate it. I hear you're back to writing a column.
Yes.
I was glad to hear that. And so really, really, I appreciate you, and I will be back in a couple of weeks. Let's see where we are, and I'll be back, and we can talk about it. I like to talk about some of the things that are going on locally, some of the challenges that we face. I want to assure you, because I know you have been one of the folks who've said, around the recovery. We're going to make some major announcements as a city next week for support for rental assistance and small businesses that I think folks in the city will appreciate.
That's great. How about this? How soon that check will come from the government?
That stimulus, that heroes thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. We need some heroes to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Okay. So, gracias, Fernando.
No, gracias, María.
Ok. Hasta la próxima.
Hasta la próxima. Bueno, señores oyentes de Úsala Media, les habla Fernando Mendez. Estuvimos en una conversación con la concejal María Quiñones, hablando sobre lo que estamos contemplando en este momento, las elecciones. And I don't know if anybody has joined me. I thought Martin might be on. But no, Martin is not on. He's not checked in. This is, when they say may you live in interesting times, this is a great example of living in not only interesting times, but very stressful times. I don't know about most of you. I have had very little sleep since Tuesday night because we all believed the polls, and I thought Biden was going to jump ahead. Um, and it took a while to understand what was happening. So it was very stressful to see the country covered in red, every state becoming red. And so what I didn't know at that point was what the process was going to show us in the coming days. And not until late that evening of Tuesday, when James Carville and Michael Steele, who was former head of the Republican Party, James Carville and Michael Steele said, put the razor blades away, put the Ambien away, don't be stressed. This is just the beginning. The numbers we are seeing now, where it looks like Trump is going to win all over the country, that will change, but it will take time. Well, maybe they know the game. Maybe they have done it so much that they could understand. But for us, all we could see was an advantage of hundreds of thousands of votes for Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden struggling to gain a few votes here and there. And as we have seen from the small increments in the vote going to Mr. Biden as soon as more and more ballots were counted, and where we saw finally the vote in Pennsylvania begin to have an impact and slowly overtake the numbers that Mr. Trump was showing. Until then, it was almost impossible to relax. This is certainly one of the most interesting elections in my lifetime. Uh, I may date myself, but I was marginally involved in the Kennedy Nixon election, luego más tarde, later on, Johnson and his Great Society. Um, and then, well, Nixon came to power in '68. Nixon and Ford when Nixon had to leave, and then Jimmy Carter. And after Carter, well, we had Ronald Reagan, we have the Bushes, we have Clinton, and we had the first black president in Barack Obama. It's a long trek, long story. One thing that I have always said to anybody who says that maybe the next president will pay attention to Latin America, I would not hold that hope, not even with Joe Biden, who seems to have a good heart and a concern for other people's. Um, I would not have high hopes of any help from the United States to Latin America. Um, the only president who has done anything significant in terms of helping the poverty of Latin America was John F. Kennedy, who donated 20 billion with a B, $20 billion to Latin America in 1960, 61. That money allowed many countries in Latin America to build libraries, schools, neighborhoods. It had a tremendous impact in Latin America. And nothing, not a thing since then. Even when the scourge of Marxism invaded Latin America, there was no help coming. So, new president, renewed hopes in the United States, but he's got a tremendous task ahead, Mr. Biden, to rebuild our faith in our Justice Department, to put somebody in place of Bill Barr, somebody with a conscience and professional, a true professional who's not going to sell his soul. Restore our faith in the FBI, restore our faith for diplomats, career diplomats who will enhance our friendships around the world and not try to profit by building hotels and engaging in other transactions with foreign dignitaries in order to make a profit. Let government be what it used to be. Let our diplomats do what they always did. Not that they only engage in diplomacy, because actually one of the things diplomats have done always around the world was promote US businesses, but in the right way, not for themselves, not to profit themselves. So that has to happen. And another drastic transaction here, the way we treat our immigrant women and children at the border. Do not separate families. There are 500 families separated right now. Let's try to find a way to put them together again. This is a time for healing. This is a time to rebuild. It is unbelievable how low this president took us. And we were on the verge of self-destructing. I cannot imagine what another 4 years of Donald Trump would have done to the environment in the world, to us, to our credibility, to our conscience, to our sense of self-worth. So here we are. This is a victory, not only for Mr. Biden, not only for the Democratic Party, it's a victory for common sense, for decency. It's a victory for all of us. And I know people are saying that we should set aside resentment. We'll be glad to set aside resentment. I am not going to spend my time, my energy, despising the people that helped to destroy this system. I will not forget, however, and we should not forget. So let's hope that in the next wave of righteousness, we can remove people like Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham from the corridors of power. Anyway, señores oyentes de Úsala Media, les agradecemos mucho su sintonía en el día de hoy. Estuvimos en una conversación telefónica con la concejal María Quiñones, que tiene una perspectiva única sobre lo que sucede políticamente. Les agradecemos mucho su sintonía. Les habla Fernando Mendez, Christian Lacey at the board. Los esperamos hasta la próxima.